If we could ask everybody to please take a seat so that we can all get started, because I think this is the final session before the cocktail and the drive. So I think it'll be good to get it done, right, Jerry?
Last thing between them and drinks?
Exactly.
It's a good spot to be in.
Exactly. Again, folks, look, some of the numbers that we're going to talk about here and share with you all hopefully doesn't come as a surprise to anybody. And I'm really super happy to have, be joined by Jerry Kahil, who serves as the CFO of our energy business and obviously been with Plug for a very long time. Phenomenal track record, lots of experience in public accounting to technical accounting, and he keeps me honest. So with that,
somebody
Jerry,
needs to do that.
That's right. So with that, I think if you want to just go through some of the numbers here, but then we can kick it off.
We're not going to read this again, are we?
Yeah.
So Andy had this slide in his material this morning. We want to give you a little more detail on what this really means. We expect to exit the year on a run rate of about $10 a kilogram of hydrogen cost. That's a blended between internally produced through Georgia and Tennessee, but also externally sourced out of the industrial gas companies that we've been working with for the last almost 10 years. At the end of the year, we'll be probably 1/3 in-sourced, 2/3 externally sourced, which is a big shift from where we were 5 years ago. That was 0% at that time, right? And then when we move into 24, we'll exit the year on a break-even run rate. It's because we'll have 80% will be in-sourced when the additional plants come online between Louisiana, Texas, and New York. So we're expecting a paradigm shift in the cost profile, as you think, from the end of 23 into the run rate at the end of 24. And then as you can see how we blend it down over time with the additional internal production over the next 5-year period. So this is a pretty significant contributor to the margin expansion of the company. Anything on this, Sanjay? You want me to kick this
No,
off?
please. It's all
Yeah,
yours.
so what we've shown here, the topic is cost parity of hydrogen. This is showing what we forecast the cost of green hydrogen to be in the near term. We've shown an example, 45 ton a day plant, and how that's going to decline over the end of the decade. So the way we show the green, this is the cost of a gas plant. And then we layered in the incremental cost of liquefaction, both the CapEx, OpEx, and the additional electricity. So the way we model this today, 3 to 4 cents a kilowatt hour, consumption combined 70 to 75 kilowatt hours a kilogram. That's both the electrolysis and the liquefaction using our current liquefiers that are sourced not internally, not through Joule, but through Chart. And then a run rate CapEx, as we see coming into 24, of $10 million a ton. Again, combined both gas and liquid. And then as that decreases 30% over the rest of the decade, we see a 20 to 30% reduction in energy cost per kilowatt hour into that 2 to 3 cent range. We see a 20% reduction in energy efficiency from the mid-70s to about 60. Again, once we start bringing in the efficiency of the electrolyzers, as we talked about earlier today, and also the introduction of the Joule liquefiers. You saw the product roadmap that Ben took you through earlier. And then a 40% reduction in the CapEx from 6 million ton down to, or from 10 million down to 6. You want to talk about the blue paradigm?
Maybe I can take this one a bit, right? And again, by the way, this is not our knock against blue hydrogen. Let me start out by saying that, right? Again, look, there are going to be some where it makes sense to do blue hydrogen, where you have the optimal natural gas price, or you probably have the right geological formation to do carbon capture and sequestration. Absolutely. And I'm sure Ben and Danny would be more than happy to sell them liquefier if they want to do some liquefaction. As a matter of fact, we got some of those discussions going on right now, as we shared with you all before. But here's the thing, right? I mean, I think Andy did ask me this question in our panel earlier today: why green and why not blue? But when you think about that energy component of the blue, right, that's really all about natural gas prices, okay? And then, by the way, not making a call on the natural gas price going forward or anything like that, but if natural gas becomes a global commodity, that energy component there is about $6 an MMBTU, right? If that's 10, that number's changed a lot, not to mention the fact that it's been unbelievably volatile commodity, right? And then that whole carbon capture and sequestration number that we have there comes from S&P Platts. That number came from Bloomberg New Energy Finance. That's not our number, right? That's what we used. And also OpEx number, we used the number that was available out there, in the public domain by a bunch of these research houses. So, but in our case, right, when you think about energy, this is a Now, this is large scale, right? When you think blue versus large scale green, this is really mid $20 a megawatt hour, kind of a 70% capacity factor, solar and wind prices, if you would. You're not going to get that everywhere. I get that, but there are locations where you can get that as well, right? So once you have that structure, if anything, our OpEx number can be probably a lot more optimized. So that's the situation of blue versus green, which is why for our own internal production and generation, we're focused on green and really not doing a lot on the blue side. And by the way, and I'm sure there's going to be some situation where the blue hydrogen might get 90% of the $3, right? Maybe 80% of $3, right? Maybe 50% of $3. But this green is going to get $3 of that PTC, right? So because of that, when you factor in PTC, when you factor in all these things, we believe that green already wins. And it's going to continue to win as you go forward. But our goal, again, is hydrogen is a massive market. Those who want to do blue and want to be successful on that front, absolutely happy to support if we can. But our focus is on green, and this is why.
Yeah, the energy input here is about the same if you look at the size of the blue, right? You're looking at about $1.25 per kilogram equivalent of natural gas versus electricity. So it's really about the difference in the CapEx and the carbon capture.
Yep. And with that, I think that's our final slides,
right?
Right?
A few questions. Yeah, we want to keep this to a Q&A.
Yeah. Or if there is no question, we can all go and start drinking too. That's perfectly fine.
They got 24 minutes. They can wait.
Yes.
Double sorted question.
Uh-oh.
It surprises me that the OpEx of blue is not greater than what is stipulated in that graph.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't. That matrix hasn't been developed yet. So I guess it's just a guess.
You could say yes, but look, this is not our number.
Because if we look at
right?
the CCUS operations in place now, that number is much higher.
Yeah, I mean, what we didn't want to do is kind of cherry pick the numbers, frankly, right? We just decided to take numbers that was out there by Bloomberg New Energy Finance and S&P Platts. We didn't want it to be plug number, tweaked, optimized by plug. By the way, you should actually also look at our OpEx number, right? That's what I said. This is actually, there's room for optimization there, absolutely, right? But look, we also didn't want to be like, oh, gee, we're going to get that right. We just wanted to show what is the state of the industry right now, and we obviously, again, I think we just didn't want to kind of say, oh, that OpEx looks really low. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. That's what was the public number out there. We took that, but we just wanted to give you a comparison in terms of what it looks like. But look, your point is very well taken, and not just even that, right? How do you even do sequestration? There's just so many questions that comes up, But again, we're not purists. Those are the folks who are going to get it right, where you got the right natural gas, where you got the right geological formation. God bless, they should do that. We're all going to need a lot of hydrogen in an effort to decarbonization and energy transition, right? But our view is green should win. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
And that green's competitive without the PTC. Then when you layer in CI
Exactly.
scores, green's going to have a further advantage versus blue.
Yep. Then just a follow-up, if I may. As per methane emissions, is there any quantification as per methane evaluation on the environment into these? Does Plug look at that at all going into the future?
We do. Where's Raja?
You're looking for Raja, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm looking for Raja. He's
right here.
Raja, you got to come up. I can give an answer, but you will actually give a much better answer to this question than me. So,
can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
The methane effect.
Of methane emissions in the calculations moving forward towards
for blue.
Towards clean energy and development.
I mean, emissions of methane itself. You're saying like for the blue hydrogen, right?
Yeah.
I think it's not changing anything as per. I think the blue energy. I talked to Sanjay several times. It's not about the real hurdle based on detailed research I did is basically not in the separation of the CO2 but in the sequestration. Okay, I can give you a one-liner that you can go and research. A huge project by Chevron, Exxon, and what other Shell. All three of them joined did a huge project in Australia, and that was a major failure. And that was a major failure, and they ended up paying a lot of penalties. They're continuing to pay the penalty because they didn't meet the demand. So the real problem with blue hydrogen is really in the sequestration, and it's going to be a while before they really, get master at it, or they may never get master at it. I don't know. It's the main thing is also I used to talk to Sanjay that what is the difference between we are also trying to store hydrogen in the same way like CO2, right?
Sure.
But the thing is CO2 causes acid compared to hydrogen. Hydrogen doesn't create any acid with the hydrogen water. Okay, the same problem that they have for CO2 sequestration, we don't have in storing hydrogen. Okay, so there are several things that kind of makes it very difficult for CO2 sequestration at this point of time. So that is more difficult issue than the emissions of this methane itself. Whatever the typical emissions remains the same. It doesn't change much for particularly the hydrogen, blue hydrogen methodology. That's what I think.
Great. Thank you, my friend. You might want to keep that mic just in case there is another technical question before you go back.
Just a quick question. Is there anywhere in America that carbon capture and sequestration is done at scale currently?
Yeah, there are few places like they have been running, but the thing is, every one of the project they run for a few years, okay, and after that, what happens is lots of corrosion causes a lot of problems. Like all the equipments, like compressors and other things, pipelines, and the seals, all those things are right, concrete seals, metal seals, all of them gets corroded by that acid that is formed by the combination of water and carbon dioxide. So there are several projects that started, okay. And some of them still running. Don't get me wrong, some other project. But the thing is, it's very complicated with respect to what is the composition of the water in that area, okay? And sometimes the other ingredient in the water, magnesium, calcium, and all the other salts, right? Depends on what salt is there. You really need to have a correct way of handling it. If you underestimate the issues related to that, then it's a major issue. And that's exactly what happened in Australia. Like if you go, I heard that it looks like a ghost town in terms of like how it is corroded on the compressors and things like that.
Could I ask about the cost structure of your electrolyzers? And the reason I ask that is because the industry scales, would you be limited to the availability of certain catalytic materials, and would there be certain bottlenecks that would impact this cost structure?
Yeah. I can start, right? And short answer is we don't believe that's going to be the case unless we're doing, call it, our capacity is 10x than what it is right now. But even in that situation, we're thinking through, we have a partnership with Johnson Matthey, right? And our supply chain team, led by Brandon Snyder, they've done a great job of making sure, how do you think about recycling of this precious metal, right? How do you think about even recycling every single stack, whether it's your electrolyzer, whether it's our fuel cell? So if anything, we actually have a cost reduction roadmap. And the way we think about this is today we call what we're in a dry build 1. We're looking to be in dry build 2. Then we're going to be in dry build 3, and there's a step change in terms of the amount of the catalyst you need, right? Precious metal you need to actually, in fact, be put on a stack. That number is going to drop pretty dramatically. We're doing the recycling, right? And by the way, we are gearing up for that. And I think I touched on this a little bit, that there is some kind of a hockey stick effect coming probably in the second half of this decade, right? And when that happens, when you got big oil and gas company getting comfortable to really say, you know what, now I'm ready to displace gray with green. When you think about the amount of the hydrogen being used, that is 50 to 60 gigawatt worth of incremental electrolyzer demand just in the US to serve that industrial market, right? So we've been thinking through this. That's why we have the kind of the partnership. I really don't think that's going to be a limiting factor for us. And you heard probably this morning our CTO, Tim Cortez, talk about all the steps we're taking in the CTO office to make sure that we're managing cost, getting efficiency right, driving the cost down. So I don't think that's going to be the case. We have a pretty clear cost reduction roadmap when we talk about how we get to even our overall CapEx number, even for our own hydrogen plants and things along those lines. Raja, is there anything you want to add about the catalyst?
No, you're correct.
No, it's true. Same efforts on the fuel cells.
Did you say that was using $6 natural gas, and then the
Yes.
overall cost was $1.25?
Correct.
Yep. For the blue, yeah.
You could argue that natural gas prices might be $4 and that energy cost is, let's say, $1, right? Now, you can then, I'll also make an argument in the West Texas, I got a 1.5 cents kilowatt hour wind power, not 2.8. Yeah, so we're just trying to make it an apple to apple and think about natural gas more as a global commodity rather than just looking at one particular location where you got the most optimal price. Any other questions? Okay.
Optimization of behind the fence and electrolysis is where's sort of your arrows indicating how that can be effective on hybrid systems?
Yeah.
And it's a very broad question, I know, but maybe there's some clarification that you've looked at already.
Can I say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you electrolyzer, if you take it right, there is a theoretical amount of energy that you require. You cannot compromise it at all. And if you look at plugs, electrolyzers, they are the most efficient ones so far. Like in the market, if you look at, I mean, all of them are difference of like, maybe 4 or 5 kilowatt hour per kg. That's a difference. But they are all pretty much similar. But from the optimization point of view, it's not just the electrolyzer alone, particularly when your whole market is liquid. Combine together liquid and the electrolyzer together, right? And also all the electricity prices and regs you buy. So many things are coming into the optimization. That's one thing we have been always looking at, when we have more plants coming up and we have different sources of electricity and all that, renewable, optimizing is going to be a huge problem. But the thing is, there are several types of optimization problems, similar problems. Plant optimization has been already done, and real-time optimization is a well-established technology. And we'll embrace all those technologies just to make sure that our plants are operating at the best optimal point. So that's basically it's a known problem, a known solution exists, but we have to make it work for our plant.
And maybe Raja, if I could just add 2 things. So Raja and Brent have been working together now to really think about not just behind the fence or behind the meter, if you would, right, in terms of optimizing that renewable load with our electrolyzer load. We're really thinking about automation of the plant, right? How do you reduce, how do you start to really think about some of this action item? How do you think about, IT infrastructure, right? How do you think about all these things? And Raja's been obviously spending a lot of time doing that. And another reason, so this is not a plug for plug, if you would, in terms of why we're focused on PEM. If you really want to, and we touched on this a little bit, right? But if you really want to be able to leverage and optimize the decline curve of renewable electricity, you have to be able to deal with the intermittency and the fluctuation of that load, right? And that's the beauty of PEM electrolyzer, where you can actually really drop down to such a low capacity and really ramp back up very immediately. And that's the beauty of PEM in terms of being able to do that load follow and really be the prime beneficiary of taking advantage of that low cost electron, even if you're not running necessarily at the 100% capacity factor, right? So I think PEM is by far the best suited solution for that until something comes along. I'm sure there might be something that comes along in the next 5 or 10 years, but that's why we think that we are the prime beneficiary to really take advantage of this, even behind the meter approach. Yes, sir.
Is the Georgia facility configured to take, I guess, a load that varies over time? I know you won't be doing that, but like what would it take? Like are there additional components that are needed in the facility to make it adaptable to the load profile of vehicles? Or do you already have that in your...
So it's a plug PEM electrolyzer, right? So Georgia would actually not have this challenge, but maybe I'll provide a little bit more detail on this. So Georgia is grid power, really, with renewable energy credits attached to it, right? Mm-hmm. So what we have done is we've actually built a bit of a redundancy in the system, though, right? So what also we want to make sure is avoid some type of a critical peak load, if you would, right? Just so that you don't get caught up in these peak charges and things like that throughout the day. So we're always looking at an hour ahead pricing. And we want to make sure that in an event, if we need to flex the plant down, let's say for 30 minutes during that day, we are actually able to do that. Because, because we have on-site storage, right, which allows us to keep the network going. We can actually, we have about two 90,000 gallon tanks, right, Jerry, there on site, right? So which is
90,000.
about,
Yep.
how much is that?
180,
That's like
yeah.
45 tons or so of hydrogen storage on site,
Yeah.
right? And another thing we've done on that is we've also built some, and so while this has nothing to do with really being able to deal with that intermittency of the renewable electricity, we've actually built in some level of redundancy with the electrolyzer, because to be able to do 15 tons of liquefaction, we could have done that with 35 megawatt of electrolyzer instead of 40, right? So even if there is let's say an unanticipated, by the way, when you grow in this industry at the rate that we're growing, something could go wrong with the stack. Something could go wrong with that one of the skids, right? So we can actually be maintaining that skid without having any operational challenge for both the gaseous as well as the liquid plant. So, and Raja is obviously looking at what else can be done from plant optimization, automation, and things along those lines, if you want to add anything, Bud.
Yeah, that's correct. Turning down is we have pretty good turn down capability. That's basically what you're asking for. So the
Yeah.
turn down capability is pretty good. Like we can literally shut down the entire electrolyzer, still we can run the liquefier just by keeping it cold. Basically, we won't be making any production. But if the electricity is really high, we can completely turn down to zero actually for short time when the electricity price goes up.
Does it wear on any of the equipment turning down?
No. Basically, like you're keeping all the temperatures same. So as far as the cold box is concerned, like it's a very, very common strategy. Like whenever, like it's same strategy that they use in ASUs and all that. They shut down the actual compressors and all that. Still keep the cold box at the good temperature, low temperature, cryogenic temperatures until again the electricity price is low. So it's a very common strategy, but we have to, once we start operating it, and that's when all the strategies will be building into the actual operations. So like if the cost, if we buy all the RECs, then there is no need for that.
Yep.
Okay. But if the electricity price, even after buying RECs, still the instantaneous electricity can be pretty high. Yeah. So then we have to shut it down for maybe an hour or two. That's, but it's all built into the process, methodology, and operation strategies.
And it's assumed in the cost models as well.
Absolutely.
It's not at 100%.
Exactly, right. And then I think one another thing we've done, and Jerry, you can also talk about it some more, is we've actually been also enhancing our energy management, energy trading, energy procurement, renewable energy procurement capabilities quite a bit, right? So, it's not just by the way, we don't want to get into the energy trading business. That's not the goal here. But given I think we're now becoming a very large user and buyer of renewable electricity, we actually obviously are building a lot of that capabilities in-house as well. So
yeah, we built a team under Kevin that can, negotiating PPAs, evaluating hedging strategies, turn down strategies, avoid peak. All of that is starting to be built out.
yes, sir.
Do you ever offer that as a service?
I'm always looking for revenue. I haven't thought of that one.
Well, actually, it's interesting you asked that question, Drew, right? Because you're the second person who asked that question, or the partner, or so not at the moment, right?
I mean, it's
Yeah.
power variability and the cost, CLR,
Yeah.
cost differentials, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a complex.
Indeed, right? And again, look, I mean, this is never going to be a balance sheet kind of a thing that Plug would ever do, but it's a capability that we're going to continue to build out because it's obviously very important as our size of the plants gets bigger. And by the way, this is not just in the US. Ben actually has lots of power experts in his team working also in Europe, which is why I think we were able to structure the deal that we structured in Finland, right? So they've done a lot of work, lots of simulation, thinking through a lot of things. So are we going to provide that as well? We've also been asked if we want to actually do an O&M when we sell liquefier to third parties, if we would be open to operating the plant for them. We haven't obviously made any of those decisions yet, but appreciate the comment.
Any questions?
I don't see anybody else.
All right.
Can you talk about what you're seeing on the competitive front from the companies that are looking to develop electrolyzer company? We saw a Wall Street Journal article recently about a company called Electric Hydrogen
Sure.
aiming to
Sure.
do it at a lower cost. Can you just comment on that?
Yeah. Well, look, by the way, we're rooting for a lot more companies to be very successful in this space. Let me start with that premise, right? Because we certainly don't want to be the only company running in a marathon or the 100-meter dash and come first. You need the industry, right? You need a lot of players in that industry that is going to help build supply chain, that is going to help make it a really big industry, right? We, of course, want to have a lion's share of the market, but we certainly are rooting for many more companies to be successful. Now, we do know the company that you just mentioned here, and one of our big customers actually is a strategic investor in that company as well. And so that might have been a basis for your question as well. We do know the founders. We do know their technical people. Look, I mean, they come from the solar industry. They understand, I think, scale, and they're thinking about things the right way. But again, guys, right, these things do take time, and I don't think, look, I mean, again, as I said, right, we're rooting for them. There's a need for more than 1 gigafactory on the electrolyzer side. You're going to need multiple of those gigafactories, but we don't see them being, based on feedback we've gotten from industry, and maybe we're wrong, that at least until sometime in 27 timeframe, they might not be quite there yet with some real scale, real volume. And if they get it done faster than that, that's only better for the industry, because frankly, for all the opportunity that's ahead, we are not the only company that's going to be able to supply all that. Sure.